Let's go now to Mark Cuban, to Lina Khan. There's been a great war. We talked about this previously, where there had been efforts by Reid Hoffman, the Democratic mega donor billionaire, to oust Lina Khan on television. She is the FTC chair under President Biden and has been very aggressive on antitrust, specifically in Silicon Valley. Well, now Mark Cuban, who has really emerged as a major Kamala surrogate, let's put this up there on the screen, has come out in a recent Semaphore event to say, quote, "If it were me, I wouldn't," asked if she should keep Lina Khan as FTC chair. Quote, "By trying to break up the biggest tech companies, you risk our ability to be the best in artificial intelligence." This fits with a general strategy by Cuban to not only serve as a surrogate, but to do so for a very specific purpose, in that he wants to be the head of the SEC under Kamala Harris. Let's take a listen.
But I ask you, Mark, whether you would entertain being a Treasury Secretary, Commerce Secretary in a Harris administration.
Head of the SEC. Head of the SEC. That's the job I would take.
That is a man who knows exactly what he wants, because Cavuto is like, hey, are you going to be the Commerce Secretary? He's like, oh, head of the SEC, head of the SEC. He knows exactly which one he's going for. This is, though, and it will be an interesting fight if Kamala does win. So we had Senator Bernie Sanders come out. Let's put this on the screen. He says Mark Cuban is wrong. Lina Khan is the best FTC chair in modern history. True. By taking on corporate greed and illegal monopolies, Lina is doing an exceptional job preventing large corporations from ripping off consumers and exploiting workers. Thank you, Lina, for what you are doing. This is also interesting because I saw David Sirota making this point. It is now that the Republican vice presidential candidate, J.D. Vance, has had better things to say about Lina Khan publicly, at least publicly, than Kamala Harris herself, who clearly has a disparate, like, billionaire coalition at the top, which is very broken up about how exactly she should govern, how she should have policy proposals and all that. And I think this will be a flagship test for her. I'm not sure which way it'll go. If I had to bet, I think Cuban's going to win. Yeah.
Well, and the specific job that he's angling for, head of the SEC, that's the Securities Exchange Commission. Gary Gensler is the head of the SEC right now. And, you know, the Mark Cuban billionaire types of the world, they not only hate Lina Khan, they also hate Gensler. And specifically, they hate Gensler because he has been hard on crypto. He's been, I mean, he's just like applying the laws to crypto. And so a lot of the, you know, a lot of people in the tech billionaire world, they are really adversarial towards Gary Gensler too. So Mark Cuban signaling he would be, you know, friendly in a lot of regards if he was there as head of the SEC. And, you know, it's one thing if you were like, oh, this guy's just out there freelancing like a billionaire, just like saying, oh, I hate these, you know, attacks on corporate power. But he is an official Kamala Harris surrogate. And he has made it clear in the past when he was criticizing the approach of the SEC, which is, you know, their approach is just literally actually enforcing the law. He was critical of that, and he was asked effectively, like, are you saying this, or is the campaign saying this? And he was like, the campaign told me, she told me to say these things. So, you know, it sucks because the best hope for Kamala, from my perspective, would be that she would be more like Obama on foreign policy. A little, you know, he had the Iranian nuclear deal. He was a little bit more adversarial towards Israel. I'm not overstating the case, but he was certainly better than Joe Biden. And that she would be more like Biden on domestic policy, where the FTC, the antitrust stuff, the labor stuff, and I think labor seems like she'll be, you know, more or less where Biden was on labor, as best as we can tell. But the SEC, you know, skeptical approach to crypto, that she would carry over those pieces. And, you know, at this point, you just have to say the indications are very worrying that she'll revert to the Obama era, very Wall Street cozy type of relationship towards Wall Street and Silicon Valley. It makes sense in certain regards, since Kamala Harris was Attorney General of California during the time when a bunch of these tech companies were rising to be the monopolistic behemoths that they are right now. And she, you know, she did not scrutinize them whatsoever. A lot of her donor base came from that world, et cetera, et cetera. And so, you know, on the one hand, like, yes, the Biden-Harris administration has actually been really good on these things. In fact, we could put up D5. The Justice Department under Biden-Harris is now considering asking a federal judge to actually break up Google and sell off parts of its business. So they have been certainly the most skeptical and the most tough on these, you know, giant tech monopolies and a lot of other monopolies as well have really tried to reestablish antitrust regulation and enforcement and look at these anti-competitive practices that giant companies like Google have pursued. But she seems so enamored with this, like, I'm going to appeal to Republicans and I'm going to, appeal to Wall Street strategy, that I think there's a real risk that she does not follow through on, the positive Biden direction that we've seen on these things. I would be remiss if I didn't point out, like, obviously Trump's biggest backer is Elon Musk, who's one of the richest people on the planet and is himself now a tech oligarch, et cetera, et cetera. So, I don't want to make it seem like, oh, the Republicans will be better on big tech. The evidence is the Biden-Harris administration has been better and more skeptical of corporate power and more skeptical of tech in general than the Trump administration was. But just from a policy perspective, I think it's a real shame that she appears to be reluctant to let down the Mark Cubans of the world, thinks that this is like the best political direction for her to go in, trying to cater to these, Wall Street executives and billionaires. And I don't know if it will matter in terms of the election, but I saw some opining from like Matt Iglesias and the like that, there weren't really any political rewards for being more aggressive on antitrust enforcement. So the reason to do it is because it's good policy, not because it works out to be good politics. But I sort of disagree with that, because if you look at the polling of Kamala Harris and even of Joe Biden to a certain extent, even though he's very unpopular, she consistently performs better on is going to represent the interests of the middle class. And, consistently performs better on questions of who's going to represent the wealthy and who's going to represent the average American. And, do I think that people are really immersed in the details of what Lina Khan's doing at the FTC, et cetera, et cetera? No, but some of this breaks through. Some of this gives a sense of, okay, they've been fighting in these key regards, whether it's going after junk fees or trying to make it easier to file your taxes or going after some of these big concentrations of power. Some of that does break through. And so to just dismiss those numbers of where she is performing better than Trump on who's going to represent your interests over the interests of the wealthy, I think is also to be very selective in your analysis of the politics of this too.
I just don't know. I really don't know. This whole deliverism theory and all of that, yeah, it's like, but how many voters out there who are even thinking about middle class think about the FTC? Now, I don't think Sneer is necessarily wrong. They're going to feel it regardless of the policy or not. But are they paying attention? Evidence says probably not. So I think she might be able to get away with it if she does win. Under the Trump administration, it's an open question, like I said, because of JD's previous comments on Lina Khan and which direction that they will decide to go under their DOJ and their FTC. It really honestly depends on like which donor or whatever. So we'll see. It's one of those where the actual question of it is more important at a policy level than necessarily like political. This is actually, again, it's like I was talking about this yesterday on the Johnny Mitchell show, by the way, The Connect. We were talking about economic policy and all that. Unless you're very wealthy, you don't really have any specific economic things to point to. I've been thinking about this.
What do you mean?
Rich people know exactly what they want from the tax code. Salt, that's it. Salt, if you're a small business owner.
TCJA.
Yeah, TCJA. QBI, you're like, you know exactly what you need to lower your tax by X, Y, and Z. Most people, if you're a W-2 income person and you make less than $400,000 a year, which is 90-something% of the country, both of these candidates say they will not increase your marginal tax rate. So you have nothing specific that you can point to. Maybe if you work in the solar industry, you can be like, yeah, tax credit. Or if you work in oil and gas, you can be like, okay, I want some subsidy or whatever. Eventually that will filter down to me. But something I've realized in like this FTC and all of that is that it is a hyper elite conversation because most people don't make money or make enough money or make money in the ways to be affected by this macro condition. A lot of it is just a totally elite conversation because, and correctly, people should not know about salt or any of these other things because, it doesn't affect your everyday life unless you're, what, 300K, 400K or whatever household. By the way, I understand There is one corollary I want to make to the salt thing.
Yeah.
That some Californians have pointed out to me. If you did buy your house in the 1980s, like a lot of boomers, and then it massively increased, the property tax bill has now become so high that the reduction of salt actually did negatively impact them. So that might be the one case where I am sympathetic on salt. I'm like, I get it. I get it. Because now you're paying a shit ton of property tax in the state of California, and that's no longer deductible from your overall federal tax burden. Again, the data does tell us that it's massively beneficial to people who make over $1 million.
No, it's almost exclusively a tax benefit.
Over 90% of the benefit.
That's why you're like, oh, I don't know how Trump will go. Like, I do. I mean, we've already seen in this.
No, but we don't. That's not fair because he's not back in office. Like, he says, I'm going to have different people who are in power. We'll see how that works out. I don't know.
But think about this. Think about this. Okay, what are the issues that he's flipped on? Okay, salt.
By the way,
crypto.
Don't erase what happened to the Wall Street Journal yesterday, which is that expats will no longer be double taxed.
It's coming through for the Americans living abroad.
Will someone think of rich Americans in Singapore?
That's right.
Can somebody please think of these people?
That's really gonna seal the deal for him in terms of his electoral
prospects. There's 4 million of them and they can vote, so why not?
You've got his salt flip-flop, you've got him shifting on crypto, you've got him, going to the oil and gas industry like, I will do whatever you want. That's not real flip-flop. You've got him promising rich people, billionaires that, hey, back me because I'm gonna do the TCJA that we know for sure he's gonna do. And we see who has been honestly most empowered in his campaign, and that's Elon Musk, who is one of the biggest union busters in the country. Elon Musk is right now going to the Supreme Court to try to argue that the National Labor Relations Board is literally unconstitutional. And that is Donald Trump's probably biggest backer, certainly most influential backer. So no, I mean, I'm clear-eyed about where Kamala Harris stands vis-a-vis these issues and the hints that her campaign is giving out, and also the notable silence that she won't say what she'll do on Lina Khan. But I think we also have to be clear-eyed about Donald Trump, who's made it manifestly evident who, he is catering to in his campaign and would cater to in office, which is the same group that he catered to in office last time as well.
I don't disagree with anything he said on the campaign. I'm saying with governance, what I do know is that with chaos comes potential opportunity. Will you get 100% of like all the things you just said? Probably not. But the one thing that I could point to is that with Trump and his whole, like, I made a huge mistake last time not hiring enough loyalists, is that some of these loyalists have very different views on the economics than Gary Cohn or Jared Kushner than last time around. Will those people have any empowerment in the administration? It's a totally open question. So, yeah, I think it's one of those where, in general, I think you're probably right in terms of the way that it will go. But, we shouldn't also forget with the Republican Congress, Trump may be pro-salt, but that doesn't mean that Republicans are going to bring some salt back. Republicans love punishing blue states, and none of their constituents are the ones who have to pay for it. So it's little things like that where there are major fights to happen under TCJA.
The fact that you've had a surge in Republican support in New York.
Yeah, that's true. But that'd be in the House. That wouldn't be in the Senate, right?
But you brought up the House specifically.
Oh, no, I was talking about the Senate. I'm saying in the Senate. I mean, that's where TCJA will be.
But that's where, that's why there's been the SALT caucus on the Democratic side, is because New York and New Jersey, you've had genuine Republican surge. Again, Democrats are going to win New York overall, but you have a genuine Republican surge, especially in like Long Island and some of these areas. And so those are like the frontline Republicans, swing district Republicans now, which gives them disproportionate power. So no, it would not surprise me to see them be able to pull off the SALT thing, especially because you would have some Democrats to go along with it.
But what if we had D House, our Senate, our Congress? That would be interesting. Because it's like, well, then, if it does have to pass, look, something is going to go through. That's another thing. Not enough people talk about this, again, because most people don't know enough about tax policy. The greatest, most titanic fight will take place in 2025, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, whenever it expires. There is no world where business will just let it fall flat. Impossible. There's way too much money that is on the line, because otherwise everything just reverts back to it. So how that all goes, we should just prepare our audience. That will be the most important economic time in, frankly, a decade since that passed, because they'll probably re-extend it for another 8 years, and that will govern the tax regime of AI, of crypto, of steel unions, of solar, everything for what the future looks like, income tax, et cetera. It's gonna be a crazy fight. I'm actually kind of excited for it. We can talk about policy. Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show, ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.